Hello everybody, welcome to the second episode of Thinking Out Loud. Today's guest is somebody that is very close to my heart. He's a very successful person and has achieved a lot with his career and his creativity, and I think you're going to learn a lot from him. Afnan Prince is a songwriter, the lead singer and frontman of the band Future Humans. He's an incredible musician. He's been an actor for over a decade. He's also an entrepreneur and a deeply thoughtful spiritual seeker, and I always have really amazing conversations with him. We have been friends for quite a while, and I'm really excited to share with you some of the insights that he has. We speak a lot about how you can start to live the life that you want to live and pursue your dreams and overcome any of the self-doubts and limiting beliefs that you might have. So I really think this episode has a lot of potential to be very valuable for you and might inspire you a lot to take action in your life so you can actually start moving towards living your passions and believing in yourself and following your dreams. So without further ado, let's get into the episode with Afnan Prince. See you there.
The resource of love is like an unlimited resource, and you can give that love to anybody.
Escaping that capitalistic notion that you always need to have more or to be more.
People often look at the finished product of things and kind of just assume, oh, I need to get to there.
Why can't these animals that we share the same lineage with share the same similar experience?
Acceptance of the self from the moment we're born to the moment we die. That's one of the main driving forces of existence.
Only constant in life is that things change. I knew that it was never going to be the same.
I think we're rolling.
Hey, let's do this.
Yeah, let's do this. So hello,
Hi.
Afnan Prince.
That's the man.
Yeah, you're a man of many talents.
Too kind.
Songwriter, musician,
Yeah.
face of a band.
Frontman.
Frontman, that's the word. Yeah, frontman for a band. Future Humans.
That's it.
Spiritual seeker in many ways, I think. You're a very
Very
zen
true.
person. And on top of that, you're an entrepreneur, and you've got like Stone and Sage that you started with a bunch of your
Yeah,
friends.
with my partner and like a couple of our friends and stuff.
So very accomplished human being overall. So
Thank you very
this is
much.
going to be a very valuable conversation for people. I
I'm
think.
excited. I'm excited to have a little chat with you.
Yeah, me too. Me
Yeah.
too. We've been friends for a while actually.
Yeah.
I think I still remember the first time we met. I went to the open mic at the George. And I saw you sing. You played with
that's
Kid
where it
Dane.
was. Yeah. Of course it was. Yeah.
We barely met then, but I think we got on quite well in that like 5-minute window that we spoke. And I was like, oh, he's a cool dude.
That's literally what it is. I remember
Yeah.
my first impression of you being exactly the same thing. I was just like, I bet we can have a really good conversation.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, we can.
Yeah, here we are.
Exactly.
I think every time I've seen you since then, the small talk quickly escalates into like really good conversation about
Deep talk.
life
good talk.
and everything.
Yeah, that's it.
It's good. But also good laughs as well. So yeah, let's get started.
Absolutely.
I think it'd be quite nice to just sort of start by just talking about you and like your origin story. Like how did you get where you are now? Like you've
How did I
obviously
become
had
a superhero?
Yeah, how did you become a superhero? You've had a really interesting journey, I think, and I'd love to know a little bit about like how you kind of found your path and what you kind of see your path being going forwards as well. So if you'd like to tell us a bit about it.
Yeah. So how did I start? So I was born in Pakistan. I lived there for the first like sort of 9 years of my life. I had my 10th birthday here, so it was into lots of different things growing up, like not really knowing a lot about it. Like I'd never seen Smarties before. I remember one of my first memories of moving to the UK was when my dad was like had the cupboard stocked with all these crazy things. I was like, what the hell are these? And so you know, we were just before we started running this, we were talking about our fat years, and that's what contributed largely to my largeness, being a younger
it's easily
person.
done.
Yeah, a lot of Smarties, like a lot of 4 quarter pounders with cheese for lunch, you know.
Maltesers.
Maltesers, yeah. In fact, that was a very cruel nickname from a bully at the time who
Oh,
called me
really?
Maltese because I was small, round and brown.
No.
Maltese.
Oh my god.
You laugh about it now.
Yeah, you can laugh about it now. It's not true anymore.
But yeah, and then I used to play cricket, so and any sport really. I was just like, yeah, like I did judo growing up as well. I played cricket, played football, played rugby, played cricket at a very high level, and then got injured, and I was just like, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm a bit bored with life, so me and like some of my friends at the time, we were so desperately uncool, but like so seeking that acceptance at the time as well. And we're like, oh my god, yeah, let's start a band, dude. Let's start a band. I was like, shotgun lead singer, not knowing if I could sing or anything. But we did, and
What was the band called?
it was called Joker and the Thief.
Nice. That's a great name.
Yeah. I had to think about that for a second there. I was just like, God, what was it called? Yeah, Joker and the Thief.
Nice.
And yeah, we used to have this like school concert every year, like K 2000 or whatever. Like, so I think it was like K 2006 that we played. And yeah, it was like the final year, like before we left, and it was like, oh my God, they're like cool now. Because they did that really well.
Fat
like,
kids got cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Fat Kid lost all the weight. Like,
oh, you lost your weight at this point?
Like, literally, so I came back from one summer, and like it was to the point where people were like, there's a new kid.
Who are you?
Yeah, I was just like, no, it's still me, just me, you know, grow my hair out a little bit, and, you know, I'm skinny and taller now.
It's funny when you go through that period of being really overweight, and like, because I was also really overweight when I was younger.
Yeah.
I had like, my dad was a chef, so.
Oh, well, there you go.
I ate good food. It was French as well, so it was a lot of, you know, back then before I was vegan, it was a lot
Buffet.
of cheese, a lot of patisseries, a lot of meat. Like, it was just, and every day I'd go to the restaurant, which we lived above, my dad's favourite restaurant. Come downstairs and I just have whatever I wanted, but it was really hard. Like,
That's too easy.
I mean, it was good, but it was hard because I had no self-restraint. Especially because my dad would be feeding me all the things he was trying out, like all the new recipes.
Yeah.
I was such a fat kid, and my brother on the other side was really skinny. I was like, how is this fair? He was really athletic and really, and he was slim, and I was like the fat ball who just couldn't stop eating.
Do you know what? I've been there, and I feel you. I feel that pain.
It's a hard thing to, like, you know, when you're a kid, you don't really care about that stuff, and then you get a bit older, and suddenly you start seeking the approval of your peers when you're going through that puberty stage.
Yeah.
And I find it really interesting how when you go from being bigger, and then, yeah, I also went through a transformation where I was like, wow, I need to do this for my health. I need to lose some weight because I'm actually shaving years off my life by living the way I'm living.
Yeah.
So I just went ham, started eating well.
You were talking about, you know, health reasons.
The health reasons, yeah. I mean, it was also vanity because people were horrible to me.
Hell yeah, no, I think that's a completely valid thing to bring up, and like, you know, especially when you're a young person growing up, like self-image is such an important thing, and it's so coveted. In how you carry yourself and everything like that, and how you're recognised by your peers, because it literally limits your access to society itself.
Yeah, but I think that in itself, it's a failure of society that people,
it's problematic.
People are so brainwashed that, like, you know, the way that you look externally needs to be one particular way. Yeah. Otherwise, you're not accepted by your peers. And like, it's interesting because the people who I found used to bully me, when I lost the weight, were really nice to me. And boys who used to be like, oh, she's grim, they were like trying to get with me and stuff, and I was like, this is really bizarre. Like, you were horrible to me the other day, and now you're really nice to me. And it just kind of shows how, like, even these people who are, you know, really, they're young, they're going through adolescence, they're learning these incorrect ways of perceiving people, they're also very insecure themselves, and they also don't really know how to be happy with who they are. So yeah, I just thought it was kind of an interesting touch point. But carry on with your story. So you lost the weight.
Oh yeah, and then like, you know, that's when I started to get like girlfriends and stuff for the first time in my life. And one of the things that I remember about it was, you know, you're not really taught how to like perceive affection. You know, especially if you haven't been used to it growing through those developmental years and stuff.
Were your parents not very affectionate?
Oh, they were, but more so from like exploring in a romantic sense for the first time. And I remember getting like really involved with things.
Did you get like, were you like 100% like, I'm in love with you?
I'm like, oh my God, I'm so into it. Like, completely not knowing what love is at that stage in my life. Infatuation, deep infatuation, but like really feeling it, because I think like, you know, I think that's kind of part of what's really helped me in my creative journey as well, is like having that access to the spectrum of emotion and being free, like we were talking in the car earlier, with that spectrum of emotion and the spectrum of the self. But I didn't know how to understand that in my early years, and you know, that led to a lot of creative expression, thankfully, which was good. And then I was like, because I studied my A levels to go and pursue, you know, deeper understanding of the English language. So I was going to study English language and literature at Newcastle University.
Interesting.
And then I just went, I don't want to do this. This sounds like it sucks. You know? And I spoke to my mum and I was like, Mom, I really don't want to do this. She was like, what do you want to do? She was like, I want to perform. And she was like, all right, well, she went away for a day, and then like she came back saying like, there's like a course at Northern University for performance. Why don't you just go and audition?
That's so good. That's amazing that she
Yeah.
actually supported you through that journey instead
Oh my
of...
god, I love my mum to bits, and you know she's the first person I champion in this because like she was the one who fought for my pursuing that. Do you know what I mean? And because like my background is Pakistani, so the Pakistani families in particular,
It's a lot of pressure, isn't there?
there's a lot of pressure in regards to, you know, you must have like, you must be like a doctor or a lawyer or like something.
You have to have one
like,
of those super special, high-paying degrees.
Exactly. That's the thing. And it wasn't until, you know, my dad started to see me perform in like these bands and stuff, and like, you know, and my mum was like, because I think my mum was always performing. She always has been in her like formative years and like in her developmental and adult years as well. And you know, so she recognised that in me, and she was really
excited by it.
Yeah, and she wanted to nurture that, and like, you know, she was managing my career at one point, which was fantastic.
Nice.
But yeah, I eventually ended up going to this like audition thing, and I didn't realise like performance was an acting course. I didn't at all.
Oh really?
Nope. So I went over, and like, this is just when I'd done X Factor at like the age of like 16, 17. So gross. And like I got like quite far in it at the time. So I went into the audition, and they were like, "Oh, so like, what's your monologue?" And I was like, What monologue? Sorry, a monologue. I didn't realise I was supposed to have a monologue. And then they were like, "Well, what can you do?" I was like, "I can sing." They're like, "Oh yeah, you did that stupid show, didn't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." So I sang, and then they were like, "Yeah, okay, you're in."
Nice.
And which was really cool. And then that began kind of my exploration into the acting world, and I was like, "Oh, I actually really love this. This is amazing!" Like you know,
your
decoding
accents are
text.
amazing as well.
Thank
I have
you.
to admit, I was very impressed by yours and Andre's like New York.
For
New York. Yeah, the Fugazi brothers.
What started out as like a little joke developed into like this weird comedy routine.
So good.
Well, it's funny, man. It's like, you know, because like through studying like acting and stuff like that, I discovered a lot of stuff that, you know, still resonates with me to this day, like ways of thinking and whatnot. And we had a very tight knit course, and my mentor, acting wise, he was amazing. Like he was Professor Graham Danby, and his wife, Dr. Valerie Reed. They were both my mentors, and they were two of the best to ever do it, like in the opera world and everything as well.
Awesome.
And I basically got given an ultimatum, like by Graham. He was just like, you know, if you don't get a first, you don't get your degree.
Oh wow.
Because you're coasting at the minute, and like he's my height. He's a big bass. You know, he's like a giant man, and
Soprano. No, soprano's the high one.
As far as like that bass, he's
Bass.
like giving you all of that business. So like when he tells you off, you really feel it. And I was just like, no,
Vibrates the room.
yeah, I was like, challenge accepted.
Yeah,
Let's
good,
do it.
Good.
And then after that, I furthered my study in New York, and then I was an actor for like, well, I still am. I'm still an actor as well. Like I still do bits and bobs, but I pursued acting solely for like 10 years. Did a lot of shows that I wanted to do, which was great. And yeah, had a really lovely, fruitful time. And then a couple of years ago, just went, okay, I need to give music a proper go. I need to like do this properly. And then that's when I met Sam, who's like my writing partner in Future Humans and stuff. And like, you know, we met in this like session that we were doing for songwriters and whatnot. And it was one of those situations where there was like a room full of like the prettiest pretty boy writers. And then there was me and Sam, who were just like, this sucks. This so sucks. I don't want to be here.
Is songwriting quite different to like when you studied English at college? Is it quite a different process, or is it sort of similar, the way you have to use language?
I mean, yeah, yes and no, but because like there's so many ways to do it, and there's no one right approach to songwriting in particular. But people try and find
a formula,
the way. Yeah, exactly. I've seen so many people try and sell like, oh, this is how you do it, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. And I'm like, okay, well, that works for you, great. That's fantastic. But like, I would never go to another writer and say, you know, this is the only way to do it, because that's just not true or feasible.
Yeah, I think that's something I've noticed as well since I've really gotten into music. There's, depending on the genre you're in as well, there's so many ways that a song can be formatted. And before, completely. I used to think it was like the mainstream of like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. But
Yeah,
now,
right.
but then there are some artists like Liane La Havas. She did a song
Fantastic.
called Age,
Yeah.
and there is like not really much structure in terms of like verses and choruses, but it's just such a beautiful song. And like the guitar is like a melody in itself.
Yeah.
And I think it's really nice when you see artists actually making music, which is very original from like start to finish in structure, words, chords, everything. It's really cool. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of where, that kind of improvised thing, like that's where a lot of, I feel like, my strength as a writer comes from. Because like, I used to do this thing in like, because a lot of my live shows used to be just me and my guitar and like a set of keys. And I used to do this thing like halfway through my set where I'd like get somebody to tell me a story and I'd make a song up about it on the spot.
That's amazing.
And sing it back to them.
That's amazing.
And like, I was like, it was like a little party trick thing.
That's so good.
But like, I think the great thing with Sam is like, he hears the finished product first. Like, so he'll play a set of chords, or I'll play a set of chords or something, and he'll hear the full song, and then we kind of just meet in the middle with all of that, and like, a lot of the melodic ideas that I have, the top line ideas that I do, like he just knows my voice inside out now, like, and he knows what we need to do to achieve it, and we have this like unwritten thing where, so every song we do and every song that we've written, start to finish, from conception to polished demo, we've done it in less than 12 hours.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, so we never spend more than that. We never overthink anything.
That's cheap studio time right there.
Well, I mean, basically. So yeah, it's a very good way of working for us, because I think you can get so locked into that paralysis thinking, that analysis paralysis thing. And I really feel like that's what takes away from creativity, and like, it's that fear that is setting in, be like, oh, is this good enough? Is this right? Is not? You feel it. If you feel like you're gonna play this to somebody and you have to explain something about the part, that part's not good enough, get it out. And we're brutal like that. We're like, that's not good enough, let's do it again. Let's do a different thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
I do think that creative block definitely comes from a level of perfectionism. Even like me as an artist, when I'm working, I do find that sometimes when you're working for clients and they're paying you quite a lot of money, you have this pressure, like, okay, they're paying me quite a bit, I need to make sure it's really incredible. And I think sometimes the pressure to come up with ideas actually stops the ideas from flowing. So
completely
being able to get into a bit more of like a relaxed mindset where you're just allowing things to come to you, it's a lot more fun. And also I feel like the creativity actually flows a lot more as well, because it's like it's intuitive. It's not coming from up here. It's coming from in here.
Well, that's it. And it's in a lot of the sort of the flow state studies and everything. One of the main things they found is if you have, especially for a creative, if you have parameters to work within, that's great. But if you narrow the parameters down too much, then you will just block the flow exactly as you're describing. Because you can have unlimited creativity, but just randomly, sporadically, getting things out, and it's never going to be any structure. Whereas if you've got somewhat of a time frame, somewhat of something like that, you know what I mean, and also the knowledge that the client has booked you for you, for what you do,
because they love your work.
Yeah, exactly. Then that's the golden ticket. That's the sweet spot, isn't it? So,
when they seek you out, it's the best, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely think creativity is something that everybody has within them, though, and I think it's really interesting, because I have a lot of friends who say they're not creative, but then they'll be an incredible chef, or like, a DJ who's just able to mix like tracks that I would have never thought about mixing. And I do think that everybody has that. I think it's an innate part of what it is to be human, is expressing creativity in whatever form it might be. It might be dance, it might be music, it might be cooking.
Well, so you break down creativity, right? So if you think about, in terms of like the cognitive function itself, right? So we celebrate creativity because it's like it's more explorative and original in terms of like thinking. So it's like lateral thoughts that you've connected in a way which haven't been connected, to somebody else before. So that's like, oh, that's so creative. Everybody has that ability.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody has the ability to like think and do that. Do you know, like within reason, of course. So of course people are creative in different ways.
I think it's also like, and I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world. I only know what it's like in the UK.
Yeah.
But I imagine a lot of Western education systems are very similar. And do you think the education system teaches us, instead of to think originally, to copy and to mimic. Like I think a lot of, you know, me growing up, I went to like a public school, but it was like a really high scoring public school.
Yeah.
And, you know, we prided ourselves on that. It was a very bitchy place, but the schools were good. And you do just get taught, this is what you need to learn. Memorize this stuff, regurgitate this stuff.
Literally, that's it, isn't it? How good is your memory retention?
Yeah, how good is your memory retention? How many times have you copied the same thing down and so you remember it? And I think really, because you have to pass a test by learning a set of parameters and regurgitating them correctly, it kind of teaches people not to think originally, but actually to think what they've been told to think.
Well, this is it. This is precisely why I gravitated towards English as a subject so much, because, you know, a lot of that was, what do you see in this writing? What does that mean to you? Like, talk about that. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, right. Well, this is how I work and stuff. Because, like, you know, as much as, like, I've got an A-level in maths and, like, you know, like, sciences and stuff like that, it's great. I have an interest in physics. I have an interest in things like that. And, like, just in terms of my general reading. But, you know, it was difficult. That was difficult for me to get my head around. And it just didn't come naturally to me because, like, you know, the exploration of those, like, ideas, which in mathematics in particular, a lot of them are just black and white.
Once you know the method, you can reapply the method. Exactly. It always works.
Exactly. That's it.
Something I did like about maths, I have to admit.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that in maths it would be really hard. But then when you clicked and you understood the process, you could just put any numbers into that process and you know that the answer you get is going to be correct.
Yeah.
I like that aspect. And I think human beings, we naturally have the logical side and the emotional side.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to learn how to strengthen tapping into both. Which is why I did physics and I did maths at college, but I also did psychology and ancient history and art.
I did ancient history, one of my favourites.
So I loved ancient history. It's so interesting. And even ancient history, it's like you're learning both to think logically, but also to think creatively, because you have a source and you have to think like out of the box, like what is it about this source that I can divulge that kind of gives me more information about, you know, what this person actually might have seen versus what context they were seeing the lens through. What's their bias? How were things politically at the time when they wrote this?
Exactly.
What kind of pressures might they have been under? What kind of religious pressures might they have been under? Like there's so many things. And with art as well, it's very much like you have a process, but you're feeling through that process rather than thinking through it. And I find it really interesting. And I don't know if you found this with your music as well, but when I look at my art when I was at college and I was going through a lot of like difficult times with my family and, you know, fallout from like my mum passing away was still quite strong in my family at the time. Yeah. My artwork was very like emotional, like and expressive. Like it was a lot of like, you know, splatters of pain and like just very like, not aggressive, but yeah, like quite aggressive kind of marks. And now that I'm in quite like a chill Zen place in my life, I've sort of found this like inner peace. I feel like my work is a lot more delicate and smooth and soft in the way that I paint. Well, do you find that with your music? Have you found that it changes throughout your life?
It used to. I think it used to. I think the way I approach music has changed a bit.
How so?
Well, just like, I mean, I totally get and understand that place of catharsis for art. I think you know that's why a lot of people get into art and get so inspired by art itself because of that cathartic element. But over the years now, like I think I've just got really interested in the aspects of storytelling within songwriting. So, you know, I wanna be able to say as much as possible with as little as possible. Whereas, you know, growing up, it was like, well, how many metaphors can I fit into this?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Which, you know, and now it's a whole thing of like, you know, if I can encapsulate the whole message within one key line, brilliant.
But
that's it.
Do you not think that in itself is a reflection of how you've changed as a person?
Yeah, no, completely.
This is what I'm saying. I feel like the way that you approach, because I also love storytelling, as you can see from my artwork.
Yes.
Every piece has a story.
Beautiful.
And it tells like a really obvious story, but then there's a subtle story beneath. And that subtle story is about, you know, connection to nature, connection to yourself, love for others, you know, that unity with what it means to be human and to be a living, existing being. Yeah. And that's a subtle message, but the obvious message is like, oh, cute, they've a tiger's friend with a girl. Like, oh, wow, it's like Jungle Book. You know, like, this is something that's really interesting because like, on surface, it's how you perceive it. It tells you so much, first as the listener, about yourself. Like, what level of the story are you understanding? it really tells you a lot about the person who's listening. Like, how deep do their thoughts go? How much does this message resonate with them? And, you know, also how do they see the world based on what message they take
this is
home?
quite interesting because I never even connected Jungle Book to that piece.
See, this is what I mean. It's so
Like,
unique.
At all. I'd never thought about it in that way.
Yeah.
Again, my interpretation of that was like, okay, so it's like a deeper connection to the self, nature, the primal, and, you know, the power of yourself. You know, that's what I got.
This is because you're a deeper thinker. But I did an art fair this weekend, and lots of people were like, "Oh, it's like Jungle Book," and I was like, "Oh."
That's so interesting. That is so interesting.
Yeah, but it's the
because
same
I
with
would
your
never put
music.
that like across. Yeah.
When I show your music, I've showed your music to quite a few of my friends. They really like it. You've got some new
Happy
followers
days.
on Spotify thanks to me, mate.
Love that. Thank you very much.
I'm like your free promotion.
Love it.
But yeah, like some of my friends will not really see the deeper message, but they'll say like, "Wow, it's really beautiful," and then I'll be like, "Can you see like what the message is behind this music?" Like,
Do you get it?
you know, and I love talking to people about like lyrics as well, and like there's one song in particular that a lot of people love that I can think of that not many people I think about the message behind it is I wasn't expecting that. I don't remember who it's by. It was only a kiss.
So this is so
You
funny
know that song?
because like anytime me and Betty hear anybody say I wasn't expecting that, we both turn around and go, I wasn't expecting that. You know?
Synchronicity.
Yeah, literally.
But yeah,
Literally.
that's like that song, right? It's about his. Obviously, he falls in love, but it's about the fact she died. And she got cancer and she died, but people don't realise that. They just think it's a beautiful, happy song. And I'm like, but at the end, the final line, it tells you everything about this whole song is about how much he misses her, and he's thinking about all the moments that led up to this point in his life when she's not around anymore. Yeah. And it's so interesting because obviously my mum passed away when I was 9, and my dad loved her so much, and I've heard this love story of their life so many times that like when I hear that song, because of my experience in life, I think about him and his experience with her every single time, and it really pulls at my heartstrings, and I kind of want to cry at the end, you know? It's just so beautiful. But some people haven't had that experience, so they don't even connect the dots, and they're just like, I've told people, you know, it's about his wife who dies, and they're like, what? Really?
It's that light bulb moment for them, isn't it? Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So music is a powerful thing, man. It can bring up so many emotions, and the thing that's amazing about music is that like every person has a different resonant frequency that the music will speak to at different times.
Yeah.
Do you have like music that you listened to when you were younger that through like big moments in your life that instantly bring back certain emotions?
Taking Back Sunday.
Taking Back Sunday.
Band Take Back Sunday. So I was one of the first in my little school to like, you know, wear skinny jeans, like, you know, be the emo kid and all that.
You're an emo kid.
I was an emo kid. I'm proud, you know. And like a lot of those bands, listen to those bands, that was like kind of like my and like getting in the metal for the first time and stuff, and was like, yeah, this is my jam, and like all of my angst I can express through this stuff. And I remember like, you know, even when I hear those songs now, I'm like, oh my god, yeah, this takes me back to that place.
It's
and
so
I love
interesting
it.
that you say that, because I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
I was emo when I was at school.
Yeah.
Scene kid.
Yeah.
I was like one of those that have like the half face picture because with like my hair just like.
You weren't allowed to have like the whole.
Yeah, it was not.
Second eye wasn't allowed to show.
And I was such an angry kid. Like honestly, such an angry kid. I had so much energy and so much rage. And on top of that, people bullied me, and my dad was not in a good place at home, and I didn't really like the person I was at that time. I was at the very beginning of a very long self-love journey. Yeah. And metal music for me was the thing that I'd listen to, and I would walk down the street on the bus to school and I'd be like, yeah, like slamming my feet to the beat as I walked.
Love that.
And I was so fucking angry. And now when I listen to that music, it makes me angry. So I can't listen to metal music, because when I listen to it, I just get this feeling of like frustration that comes up in my body. Like my body remembers the last time that I was in that place.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Can you listen to it and still be chill now?
Yeah, so like for me it's more like, I think
nostalgia.
Nostalgia, and also the fact that like when I'm training, like I'll listen to like, you know, a lot of like positive metal, like posse metal stuff, like with bands like, you know, Gideon and Hatebreed and stuff.
Positive Hatebreed.
Yeah,
so positive.
Literally, no, it's hilarious because like
it's so ironic.
They are, and like, you know, it's all about being heard and like, you know, and like, you know, rising up to your potential and stuff like that, and all of that. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. Yeah, cool. You know, when you're like pushing through like a tough session, it's like it's the one. So like And like, you know, that euphoria you feel and like that kind of like sense of calm that you feel after like a really good training session.
Yep.
That's what I associate with.
That's so interesting.
So yeah, so like
So
whenever I
mad.
think about like metal and things like that, I'm like, oh yeah, puts me in like a really chill
I think
place.
you were probably a lot less of an angry kid than I was.
I don't know about that because I got into like especially when I was growing up, I got into a lot of fights and stuff.
Did you?
Yeah,
Wow,
I did.
really, you're such a Zen guy now. I can't
Yeah,
imagine
yeah.
that.
Well, I mean,
How did you become this spiritual person? Is it like, obviously your family's Pakistani, so like Pakistan and India, you know, obviously I know they're not the same place,
Conflicts,
but they have the same origin in terms of like the spiritual
They really,
aspects.
really do. They really, really do. I mean,
so-
well, I mean, bar the fact that, you know, India is predominantly, you know, like the main religion is Hinduism in India and Islam is the main religion in Pakistan. That was part of the reason for the divide itself.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm like helping with a play at the minute all about this.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah,
I'll
so
come and see that.
yeah. It's nice. It's called Where Mountains Meet. It's based on this woman Anne who's playing. It's her story. She's in the show as well, and like she's so
Wow.
amazing.
She's playing herself.
So there's an actress called Nina who's playing her, and she's actually stepping in to play the actual violin parts and
Wow,
everything.
that's
So like,
amazing.
there's beautiful moments of switching and stuff. So we're developing the show at the minute, which is really great. And you know, like she was meant to be going on tour with Nirvana playing strings for them like, on that Unplugged tour. And stuff. So she's had a crazy life, and she's just a lovely. Like everybody in that team is a lovely person. But yeah, in terms of like, you know, the basis of spirituality from that part of the world, that's not where I got it from. That's not where I got into it at all. Like I think that's, you know, my further reading since then has brought me back to that place. But you know, I didn't really have much of a connection to spirituality before that because I was, you know, I was told I have to do this every day. So like you have to like pray and do all of that stuff.
Is your mum and are your mum and dad Muslim or?
Yeah. So my mum's more so practicing or used to be anyway.
They're
Than
like
my
chilled,
dad.
chilled level.
Yeah, it's chill
practicing,
level. She's
yeah.
a musician, man. So she's like, yeah, you know how it goes. But yeah, like so when I got older, I started asking more questions about it, and I remember speaking to my mum, and I was like, you know, like what, why was a lot of what I was saying, and she was like, look, you got to make a decision on your spiritual journey yourself. So, you know, do some reading, read some books. So like, you know, I read Quran, the Bible, Bhagavad Gita, you know, the Torah, like all of these religious texts and everything. And, you know, the commonalities in them all and in the message through these different beautiful stories was very, very telling to me. So I was like, okay, cool. So just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Be
Love.
aware of your karma.
Yeah.
And like, you know, love. And then since then, you know, I think the more you discover about yourself and the more comfortable you become with that, the easier it becomes to like, you know, wrap your head around like different ideologies.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that openness definitely comes with maturity.
Of course.
Because, yeah, I mean, I had like, I would say kind of similar. Obviously, my family from my mum's side is Polish.
Okay.
Catholic Polish.
Okay.
And my grandmother's really, really very strong Christian. And my dad grew up in Marrakesh because he was born, he was French Moroccan.
Yeah.
So he grew up in Marrakesh and he saw more of like the side of Islam, but he never practiced himself. And when I was a kid, like my mum would take me to church school with my brother to make my grandma happy. And they would say they believed in God and stuff, but I never really felt that they strongly practiced as Christians or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I remember really distinctly when I was about 7 years old, I came to the kitchen and I just said to my mum, like, I don't believe in God. And my mum was like, you can never say that to your grandmother.
God.
I was really, it was interesting because after my mum died, I was only 9 and my dad just really was so angry about the fact that she had been sort of like taken away from him that he went into this like hardcore atheistic way of communicating with me. And he really instilled in me.
What kind of God would allow that kind of thinking?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he really put into me like this like anger about the things that happened. And I think, you know, he was just grieving, bless him. He didn't know what he was just talking to me and I was just there. But it really ingrained in me like this sort of resistance to even think about religion and spirituality. But as I've grown up, I think there's a combination of having my grandmother's voice, like the hardcore Christian, and then my dad's voice, the atheist, and then finally I'm finding my own voice, where in the last 5-6 years I've done the same as you. I was curious. I love debate. I'm very open to listening to both sides of the story and hearing like, why do people think what they think. I really love getting in people's heads and saying, why do you believe that? Where did this come from? And I've done a lot of research also into like the history, like the ancient history of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like in Rome with Eleusis and Dionysus, and how basically Dionysus is the same as Jesus, and you know, basically the Eucharist is a psychedelic cocktail. But and you know, it's so interesting when you look at the history as well of like the church and how it became this powerhouse, and how, you know, women got kind of removed from being a prime part of that spiritual nexus in Christianity. And even today, like people who are Christian, they don't really know the origin story of their own religion. And, you know, we go to somewhere like South America and they practice more shamanic, you know, animism type spiritual traditions where they will take psychedelics, they'll do rituals, they have a shaman, they don't have a church. Everyone can find heaven within anytime. You just have to release yourself from the ego. And I find it really interesting how the Christians kind of came over and they're intimidated by that fact that people could find God on their own, and they killed them all.
Doesn't it? Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
How do you control people? And for me, the thing that I've sort of found over time is that like, I actually think that every single spiritual practice is telling you the same thing. I mean, Jesus, there was a Gospel of Thomas that was removed later on, where Thomas was actually talking about how heaven is within. There's no heaven above, there's no hell below, it's heaven within, and like each person is able to find that. And you know, it just got removed because it didn't suit the narrative of the church.
What a dangerous thing.
Yeah, it is dangerous, right? And I do think that actually every single religion is saying the same thing. And I think this idea of like sin and you're born evil and all that kind of stuff, I actually think it's more referring to the ego, and how the ego is this nature that we all have within us. The greatest battle we must overcome is our own ego, the inner voice, and identifying with it. And finding that self-love, I think, and acceptance of the fact that you are not actually the persona that you play. Being an actor, that must have been quite interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting phrase in itself. You're not the persona that you play. Because, you know, it's that, we were literally talking about this in the car on the way. You won't be like, you know, all the facets of your personality exist until they can't coexist, you know. And it's a really strange thing to understand that you will not be this person forever. So the idea of like, you know, transience is the most permanent thing in
change
existence.
Is the only thing that's permanent.
Exactly, exactly. You know, so once you accept like the idea of transience into your life, and like, you know, that it's not a bad thing, that, you know, when you experience the good, relish it, because that's the good, right? It'll change.
Yeah.
When you experience the bad, learn from it and know that it will change. Yeah. It puts you in a very powerful place. It puts you in a very like grounded place, because then you are not what's happening to you. You are witnessing what's happening to you.
Exactly.
And I think that resonates with a lot of Buddhist teaching as well. You know, and you know, it's that thing of you are the sky, these are the passing clouds.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
I think that further relates even to phases of your life and aspects of your personality, because you are not one thing at all times.
Yeah.
You know, you and me right now are not the same you and me
5 years ago.
Yeah, or even 5 minutes from now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are going to be things that happen, information that is exchanged and experienced.
It changes you.
Completely. It changes your perception, changes your lens.
Yeah, and also daily habits that you put into place really shift that as well. I mean, again, we've both come from a similar place where we obviously had a bit of a tough adolescence. Yeah. And we both seem to have gone through this phase of like seeking approval for the wrong reasons, finding approval, and then not being satisfied with that level of superficialness, and then actually being like, actually, the approval I want first has to come from myself.
Of course. And
then the people around me will reflect that innermost feeling that I have, where I'm happy with myself. I want people around me that we inspire each other, we love each other, we support each other. But I think even going through that phase in itself is a huge process of like growth and listening to your thoughts and letting go of your thoughts.
Of course.
You know, exchanging good habits for bad habits, and saying, actually, you know, I have really bad habits where I think negatively about these things every single day. Yeah. So I'm just going to start changing now. Every time I see someone that makes me feel intimidated, I'm going to say one thing that I really love about that person. Instead of constantly just finding reasons to create otherness with people. And these tiny little shifts that you make, they completely change who you are. I mean,
completely.
If we met ourselves as 16-year-olds now, we probably would think we're twats.
I would agree with that.
I wouldn't like myself.
That's probably fair enough. Yeah. Even in my 20s, I would like, you know, I'm happily in my 30s now, and you know, even in my mid-20s and stuff, the person that I was, like, the things that I was chasing were so different to what I want and what I have now.
What are you chasing now compared to back then?
So it was all based in the medulla, you know. So it was very primal stuff. It was chasing temporaryism. It was chasing, you know, let's go on a night out and like being a daft idiot, like still wrapped in that thing of like, oh, I can get with people at will now, and like it's one of those things which is a horrible and dangerous way of being, I think, especially for yourself. It's very toxic.
Yeah.
And you know, it's very different now because it's just like nothing like that interests me at all. Like, you know, I don't like drinking doesn't interest me, like bars don't interest me, like anything like that just doesn't, like, and it hasn't done for quite some time. And you know, I'm in a pursuit of something greater, so I want to leave a legacy. I want to get, like, you know, all of my creative pursuits to a level where I can genuinely influence the world in a more positive way. Like, I've got my vision boards have like the foundations that I want to start and like build and all of that kind of stuff. And you know, that's what drives me. And like longevity, like I want to be able to experience and learn as much as possible. Like that's why, like, you know, even the way I train has changed. Like because, you know, when I first got into training, I was very much into it for like that, you know, bodybuilding mindset. Get big and get shredded. You know, swollen.
And then you ruin all of your joints. And then by the time you get to 60, you're like walking in like, huddle.
Okay, what?
Yeah, if you're at the point where like every time you drop your keys, you question, do I really need them? Because you can't actually reach.
Hey, that happens quicker than you think. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it does.
You get that kind of like, you know, if that atrophy in the muscles happens, like.
It's just not looking after yourself, I think. It's the same as me. Like when I started training again, it was like I was too embarrassed to go to a gym, so I started doing like home workout videos. Like
when was this?
Les Mills. Oh, I was like 16, man. It was a long time ago. And I read online, I was like, you have to exercise for at least 20 minutes before you actually start burning proper calories. And I was like, shit, I hate doing it for more than 5 minutes. So I would like go in the living room, I'd open all the windows and like close the blinds because I needed some fresh air coming in. And I'd just be doing these horrible like Les Mills combat workouts for like
I hear that.
6 months. And I only then got to a point where I was still fat, but I was like chubby instead of being big. And I was like, okay, I could start actually working out. Maybe at some point. Yeah. And it wasn't until I went to uni that I started doing it. But the uni that I went to was like a sports uni.
Good, Loughborough.
Loughborough, yeah. You know,
it's
the sports uni, and it was really great. Like, but you know, there's a very macho bravado kind of vibe because it's like the ratio of boys to girls at the time was like 70% boys, 30% girls,
and it's sporties
as well.
Yeah, that's
and rugby's really big there.
Yeah,
you know how rugby guys are, and I just felt like because I've always gotten really well with boys, like my energy really matches like that sort of masculine banter kind of level. Like I'm not really into like handbags and shoes and gossip and stuff, and I love girls who are like multidimensional. I have a lot of girlfriends that fit into that category where they have a balance between their masculine and feminine energy. But when I went to Loughborough, there was just so many more boys that I just found that most of my friends were guys. Yeah. And I would go and train with them and they just wanted to get big. So I was like, okay, I will learn how to train in the gym with my big friends. And I didn't want to get big, but I wanted to get like, you know, girl level athletic, ripped, not six pack, but maybe just before that level. Yeah. So I started going to the gym for all the wrong reasons. And, you know, I had a lot of guy friends. It wasn't hard for me to get on with guys, and I found that a lot of the time, the attention that I would get from guys because of that would drive me the wrong way. But I found it really interesting because as I matured after like the first year of uni, I was kind of like, I'm not really into this superficial attraction anymore. I really found all of the times that I would connect with someone based on solely superficial, the way you look, it would never really go much deeper than that. And it was good validation for my ego at the time. But I needed to go through that, losing myself in ego to actually realise, you know, the real happiness and connection is coming from what's in here. You know,
That's it.
what makes you tick? What are your values?
It's a
What do you
cheap ticket
think
with
about?
a short high.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
But we have to go through that. I think.
Of
Like,
course.
have you read Siddhartha before?
No.
Oh, it's a fantastic book.
Yeah.
I recommend everybody read Siddhartha. But I won't give up too much because it is a great book and it's definitely worth reading. But he kind of goes to this journey of finding enlightenment, and throughout that journey, he frequently he'll go up and down through finding something in himself and losing it, and finding it and losing it. And I think you have to lose yourself to the Maya in order to realize that you're lost, and you have to disconnect after that, because you've lost yourself. And I think this is one of the greatest things of being born in the lives that we've been born into, where we've had these opportunities to be, unaccepted, and to then gain that acceptance on a superficial level. Because we've come from both sides, we've been able to say, actually, this isn't real, it's not genuine, and it's not meaningful. And the things that are really meaningful come from connecting with people for who they are. And oftentimes I feel the beauty that you see in other people, it actually comes from knowing them as a person.
Oh yeah.
Not from physically. I've met some people who are super attractive on the outside, but they haven't really got much depth, and they don't think about things, they don't care about people, they don't have that beauty on the inside. And I find them quite unattractive when I get to know them.
Yeah.
And vice versa. I've met people who are not attractive, but they're so charismatic and funny, and they love people, and they look so fucking great to me when I see them.
Well, this is it, because I mean, it's interesting you bring that up, because you the 5 stages of grief, right?
Mm-hmm.
You apply that to the ego death,
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing more attractive in the world than somebody who's completely at ease with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That is the one thing that enamors anybody else into the room.
I agree. Yeah.
And again, that kind of negates any physical attributes or whatever, because when you just see, it's that thing of, they just have something about them.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing is the one thing that everybody's chasing. It's that acceptance of the self.
Yeah.
Because, from the moment we're born
Mm-hmm.
to the moment we die,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the main driving forces of existence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you know? And like all of these experiences that we have and all of the experiences that we choose are all indirectly or directly
building us to that moment.
Yeah.
I think everybody can resonate really strongly with the archetype of, the hero wanting to find self-discovery.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people misinterpret self-discovery for learning to become this big ego hero. And I think actually self-discovery is about realizing that the self itself doesn't really matter. It doesn't really exist because it's always changing.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons that our society is so obsessed with, youth, sex, power, money, pretend that you're never going to die, pretend you're never going to get old, is because everyone is so attached to their ego and the character that they think they're trying to become.
That's
that they
the key point,
actually,
the character,
right? They actually are terrified that when they die, that voice in their head that they identify with is going to stop talking, and that somehow means that they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But they are not that voice. They are watching that voice, and for me it makes complete sense now that I've got to this point. But before, if you told me this kind of stuff, I just thought, nah, it's bullshit. You have
to go through the mill to be able to come to the realization of these thoughts, and to understand the meaning of legacy, the meaning of the importance of what you do in this existence and what you leave behind and all of that.
What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind specifically? Do you have any vision of the kind of thing that you'd like to leave the world with?
Yeah. So I one of the main things I've already done a little bit of this in my time, but I want to do this on a grander level. So providing an outlet for young people in particular to be able to express the things that they can't in the moment in a healthy fashion, you know what I mean? So whether that be through mindfulness, whether that be through writing, acting things out, all of that kind of stuff, because that's something I deeply wished I had as a child growing up. I think it would have saved me a lot of bother and a lot of mental and physical scars, and it's one of those things where I think it's especially in a lot of the gentrified areas of the UK, in particular, it's really, really needed and really necessary. And basically I want to influence the world positively on a global level, and I want to do that through my work that I'm currently pursuing, and then via that create some organisations which would be really, really beautiful to have. Like, you know, like me and Betty have talked about this quite a lot, you know, where we want to provide an outlet and a safety for trauma victims, and
that'd be really powerful, I think.
yeah, and you know, like create a foundation where, you know, if people don't have anywhere else to go, or if they don't have any help or support network or anything like that, they can turn to that foundation and go, boom, there we are, let's help you out, let's sort you out, like, you know. And it's not, again, that's not anything really to attach your name to. It's just something to aspire to provide to the world, like a service to the world. Because I believe really you are what you put in.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you're aiming towards something greater than yourself, and if you're chasing something greater than yourself, I think you're on the right path.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to be said for pursuing a life where obviously you're living by your passion, you're living by your truth. And I definitely, when I see you perform, it's so amazing to see somebody doing what they were born to do. You know, like you're just like a magician when you're not even thinking about it, because it's just coming through you. It's so natural. Like when we were watching you at the Yoga X Live Studio last week, we were just like mesmerized by, like, you're not even really, you're present, but you're in like a flow state. It's like it's like the music is being channeled through.
Oh, that's why it's like my favorite thing ever to do, because like I love spending as much time in flow as possible.
Yeah.
And that's like my go-to access point for flow. So, you know, even when like on days when I can't be bothered to play like these gigs or whatever, like, because, you know, sometimes the covers gigs can be a lot.
Yeah.
I can be safe and happy and grateful in the knowledge that I was like, I'll get to experience some flow today.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and you experiment as well. Like you make a copy of someone's song original, and I think when you're living by that truth, you're pursuing your passions, you're living in that flow state with your career. The reward that you get for that is like there's so many facets to it. You know, you get paid really well and you enjoy it. Yeah. You get more success because you love what you're doing. You're not just selling your soul to make money doing something that you hate. You're actually making money doing the things that you love. And I think you get to a point with like financial security because of that you're like, it's now time for me to spend this money that I've made and give back to the communities and the people that have allowed this to be possible for me. Yeah. You know? I think
you know, if you're fortunate enough to get into a position where, you know, that's a possibility for you, I think it'd be rude not to.
Yeah, exactly, right? I feel like once you've accomplished through like your own personal development, the things that you sort of dreamed for, and you're living your truth, then the only inevitable step after that for me is to then give to other people. Yeah. And I also think along the way as well, like helping others, you know, when you're climbing up that ladder to whatever your version of success is, I think take people with you, you know, help people out. If you see an artist who's just starting out and they have big dreams and you recognize something in them that you saw in yourself when you were starting, like say, oh, come on, man, just you can support my tour, you know? Just little things like that, and you help other people as well.
Well, even something as little as, you know, if somebody reaches out to you, like in your DMs or anything like that, like take the time to like give them something that's gonna be helpful. Yeah. Like I make it a point to do that. Like every comment on like the Future Humans thing, like every message and stuff, I personally reply to it all.
Do you? Yeah. Oh, that's so lovely.
Because like I'm like, you took the time to check out what we do, and I will take the time therefore to, you know, engage with you in that way and actually show you some gratitude for what you've invested into this. So thank you, you know, and I think that's a really important thing.
I agree. It's the same on my YouTube channel. I mean, it's very small right now. Excited to see how it's going to grow with like new changes that I'm putting in, but you know, when someone takes the time to comment who I don't know, my friends, of course, I appreciate so much and I always comment back, but when you get like comments from people that you've never met before and they watch you and they enjoy your stuff and they feel like you're adding value to their life and they feel like they want to tell you, it's really such a special moment where you're like, wow, this person is actually benefiting from the thing that I'm putting out there and they're enjoying it, that it's bringing something to their life. And I agree, it's really important to give back and like communicate with those people and welcome them to your community. Yeah. You know, thank them for supporting you and helping your dream come true by observing and enjoying what you're creating. It's so important.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned adding value, because, you know, if you're moving from a place where you're seeking to answer that question, how can I add value to this or this experience or this person's life today? Then I think you start creating content and start creating experiences which will serve your end goal a lot better than if you're moving from any other place than that. Like,
I agree.
if you answer the question, how can I add value today, every single day, and what can I do to get closer to my goal, I think you're totally going to nail it.
Yeah, I completely agree. No, I think in life, we're social species. Life is about others. It's not about yourself and only benefiting yourself. I think if you go out in life seeking to add value to others, love others, be compassionate, and to ultimately make every day a day when you're seeking opportunities to make someone else's day a bit better than it was going to be if they had not encountered you or done something with you. Like, I think naturally the things that you do will grow anyway. Yeah. Because I don't know, it's just more fulfilling. Like I've gone down that path of just selfishly doing things with like the attachment to the outcome, where it's like I want to benefit from this. Dangerous. And it doesn't go anywhere. Yeah, it doesn't go anywhere. Everyone knows that you're doing things for yourself and you don't care about, you know, the value that you're adding. You know that you're just doing things because you want something. Yeah. But I think when you're actually just doing things and creating because you love it and you want to add value to people and you don't know what's going to happen, but you just believe in yourself and you just believe that the right thing will come when it's the right time. Like, you manifest opportunities for yourself. Of course you do. Because people who are around you can see that you are doing this genuinely because you love it, genuinely because you want to make their lives better and you want to enjoy it. You want them to enjoy whatever it is you're creating. You're not just making it like, here's my vanity, check me out. Well, this is it. That just takes you back to that old place, doesn't it? Yeah. Which we all desperately hope to grow out of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's one thing I really, really would love to talk about if you're happy to. Yeah. I would love if you could tell our audience how you met Betty, because that story is just unbelievable. This is a crazy, crazy good story. Yeah, unbelievable story. We've got like matching tattoos. I don't know if you can say that because of that. So I'd known of Betty for a while, just because I played a gig at a Supernatural Cafe. And great cafe. Her art was behind me. I got tagged in it, so she just posted like a story, saying something like, "Oh, it's Afnan looking beautiful with my work" or something like that. And then we started following each other, and I was like, "Oh my god, her art is incredible!" Like, you know, when you just get a feeling from somebody else, like this person is just like, just special, a special being on this earth, and like, you know, I hope they have the most amazing experience in life. And we didn't really converse or anything like that, and we were both in not very good relationships at the time. So this is like a couple of years on or so, and we barely had any interaction. And you know, I was in the process of going through a breakup with my partner at the time, and I didn't realise that she was as well. And I had this dream where I woke up in this weird mansion place, and you know, I was surrounded by these weird like spiders, spindly people, like these shadow people, and I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. I looked to my left and there's Betty, and I was like, what are you doing here? And she was like, oh, I'm here to find you, I think. And I was like, oh yeah, because we need to find the keys, don't we? So I spent all this time looking for these keys and like, you know, find one like just by the rug, and while these things are becoming aware of our presence and are getting very hostile. So as soon as I touch this key, like the bookcase kind of splits open and there's a door there. And so we run straight to the door, go through the door, and we're in my sister's room in my old house, my family house. And we sit down and we just like remember all of these past life journeys, like in vivid detail. And you know, and you know, she like bursts into tears, and like I remember that, and like she just falls into me, and I remember the conversation, and I said, "Do you not remember? This is what we do. Like I'll always bring you back. This is what we do." And you know, as we kind of came to that realization, like that universe, that little pocket dimension started to crumble in itself, and then like this like hatch appeared in the floor, went through there, ended up in, you know, the Foundry level in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Yeah, amazing game. And I was like, I know this place inside out. We can hide anywhere. And then like it was so powerful, and I woke up and I was just like, oh my god, this is so crazy. You know, but I can't just message her, hey girl, I had a dream about you. You know what I mean? Spoken ever. We haven't like had a proper conversation. Like I just like message somebody, like say like, oh, I had a dream about you. But like I woke up with this overwhelming compulsion to just like
like want to just give her a big squeeze and a big cuddle and be
Aw.
like, "Are you okay?" Like, I remember everything. But I just left it. I was like, you know what? It's just a gift from the universe, and it's like this beautiful little beacon to let me know that like that exists. 3 days later, however, I got a message from Betty. Said like, it's gonna sound really weird, but I had a dream about you, and I was like, oh no, what? No. I was like, okay, right, write yours down. I'll write mine down. We'll exchange notes because I had a dream 3 days ago as well. And honestly, down to the way we phrase things, it was exactly the same.
Isn't that insane?
And from the moment we were like, okay, well, no, we have to meet up. Like,
Yeah.
we have to meet up. And from that second on, we've been together.
That's
We're
insane.
living together. We've got like, you know, buying a house, like 2 beautiful dogs.
Little puppies.
Yeah, so it's amazing. She's incredible. She's just a special being.
Yeah, I think you've definitely found your soulmate. And
Oh hell yeah!
it's funny again, like it's playing into that spirituality aspect. Like again, I don't think I'm guessing neither of us really identify with, you know, a tribe, religion. Like I am.
No,
this.
not at all.
You're just
not
a
at all,
spiritual
yeah.
person, and like you're trusting in whatever it is that's going on that we can't understand. That is the universe.
That's
that
it.
energy that's just allowing these things to come into play. And I think you're in such a high resonating frequency at that time that you were both ready to meet each other at that time.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
now because of
well,
that,
we've been
have
with the
such a healthy
same modelling
relationship.
agency for 12 years, and we'd never worked together. We'd never crossed paths.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's insane. Like that. Like, the statistics of that are just crazy.
Yeah. It's just meant to be sometimes.
Yeah,
it's like
it is.
when I met Louis, I just knew that I was ready for something deeper, but I was also really happy just living my life.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like, if someone comes along in my life, great. If not, I'm loving my life. Everything's great. And
Great.
he was also in a similar place. We both, realistically, I didn't think I'd be in a relationship again until I was in like my 30s because I was so happy enjoying my life. And he thought the same. And it's so interesting now when we look back on it. There are so many little moments that happened leading up to us meeting each other that we could have never met.
Yeah.
You know?
No, exactly.
It's definitely a story for a different time, but it's ridiculous. Like the little synchronicities. Like he actually saw me with some guy that I was just having like a casual summer fling with like a few days in a cafe, and he saw me and he was like, "Wow, she's really beautiful." And he mentioned it to his friend, and it turned out that guy that I was, you know, kind of getting to know on a casual level, he was one of the guys that Louis had met at the hostel they were both staying at. And
The universe has a funny way of bringing
honestly,
it together.
the night that I met that guy Johnny, I would have met Louis and his friend Henry, but Henry had a motorbike accident, so they had to take him to the
because
hospital.
it wasn't the right time.
It wasn't the right time yet. I felt I had to meet
my
that
God.
guy Johnny and have that experience so that I could meet Louis at the right time when I was kind of mentally ready for it. And God, it was so interesting. Like when so many little things. We had an earthquake that evacuated us both to this place, Canggu. We both were not going to go there, but the only reason we went was because this earthquake, 7.8 Richter scale earthquake, stranded him in the island for 3 days in Gili T. And I was supposed to be going to Gili T, but I couldn't go anymore because it got shut down. So everyone was freaking out. And people were talking about Canggu. I was like, never heard of this place, but I'll go. And I only met him because we both went to this place without having planned it. It's just there's so many little things that led up to it.
It's amazing. The universe literally shook the earth to bring you together.
Shoved us together.
Literally, yeah.
But yeah, I think we're coming close to the end of this episode, but I'd like to leave with one question that I ask all of my guests. For you, what is your idea of creating a fulfilling life for yourself? And if you had a formula of things that you think are essential to that, what would they be?
Okay, so I think you got to prepare yourself in the best way possible. So like, I have like daily habits, which I do. So like that includes some sort of movement, like whether that's like full on training or whether it's like yoga or it's, you know, just something lighter, just like moving through some movement patterns and just being like a child and exploring like flips and tricks and things like that. Meditation, of course, mindful eating habits, intermittent fasting, drinking loads of water, and just being aware of the information that I'm consuming as well, as well as making sure that everything that I do moves towards my end goal. You know, you like, it's simple, you break that down from like long term, medium to short term. Like, as long as I'm hitting those daily things, everything else kind of just slots in place. And you know, I'm very, very lucky in the way that like I live a very creative life. and that's what pays my bills. That's what's like taking me around the world, and like that's what's like I'm exploring so many beautiful things. And Becky's exactly the same. You know, she's an artist, she's a creator, and you know we both are lucky enough to live our life in that way. So the secret for me in doing that is A, being open enough with yourself to allow that to happen. B, being fearless enough to let go of yourself in that happening. And C, being okay with the change that comes. Because, you know, sometimes when you aim for a life which isn't the norm, it's actually a way more daunting prospect than you imagine, because it's like, you know, you've got the fear of failure, fear of success, you've got all these intermittent, like, you know, ideas and ideologies that you've carried with yourself within your being, from not even yourself, from like your parents, from friends, and from, you know, influences around you, and it can become a lot. So being free enough in yourself to be like, okay, well, you know, I'm ready for this change, and really throwing that out into the universe, saying like, universe, I'm ready for this.
And believing it as well. You
yeah,
really have to
and
believe in
knowing that you
yourself.
have it. Yeah, that's it.
I think there's definitely something to say about, like, you know, believing in yourself and living your truth.
Yeah.
You know, my transition from being a full-time, you know, employee, doing product design and following a path that I could have been really good at, but I just didn't really love, you know.
Yeah, precisely.
To becoming like a full-time artist again, like creating, and Louis is also going through that process now where he's transitioning into being a full-time filmmaker, and we're doing stuff together on that as well. It's like, the first step is actually believing this will happen.
Knowing deeply. Yeah, exactly.
Because then you don't create obstacles for yourself, that you don't self-sabotage.
Yeah.
It's crazy, because just one final little story that I just think is insane, building on the synchronicities that you spoke about with Betty as well. Like, I was working like 8, sometimes 9 hours a day from home during the lockdown and stuff, doing product design. And it was really busy, and sometimes I'd be working 10 hours because there was so much to do, and I wasn't very fast at times. And I was waking up at 6 a.m. before work and doing art, getting my website ready, writing short stories, planning YouTube videos, and then I'd finish work, I'd eat some food, and I'd go back to it for like 2 hours every single day. And I was so tired. And I went downstairs to my friend Kathy, who has actually been on this show as well. She's a yoga instructor and just all around incredible being, spiritual being. And I just went downstairs to her, and I was just like, honestly, I'm really enjoying life, but I'm so tired. Like, I just wish that I had more time to fully focus on my art business and really see if I can make this happen, whilst also having the security of having money coming in from my normal job. And I was basically saying I want to be put on furlough. The next day, I get a call from my boss, and they're like, we have to put you on furlough, full pay furlough. I got put full pay furlough, and I had 5 months to completely bring my business up to a level where I could volunteer redundancy and I could leave that job behind. You know, thankful for everything they did for me.
Of course.
Incredible company, like really beautiful people, and so good at what they do, but it just wasn't my path, and I learned that during that time.
And if they know that, and if they're supporting you in that, that's so incredibly beautiful.
They weren't even surprised when I told them I'm going to go pursue art full time. They're like, oh, that's a really good idea.
You should do this. Yeah. That affirmation is like, okay, good.
Thanks, boss. I'm glad. So life is a beautiful thing, and it is what you make it.
Totally. I'm so excited for like your journey, Louis' journey as well, and your journey together as well, because you know, just the rate at which you're developing, you know, your craft and all of this, it's just it's a beautiful thing to witness.
Thank you. And so is yours.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so before we leave, how can people find you? Do you have any socials or websites?
I have socials. So my band is called Future Humans. So you can check us out on all good media platforms. It's just Future Humans. That's all you've got to search for. And then me personally, I'm Afnan Prince on Instagram.
Stone and Sage?
Stone and Sage, Stone and Sage Co. At Stone and Sage Co. That's really good. That's where we put on our yoga events and everything as well, which are a hell of a lot of fun. Lots of ceremonies, lots of great stuff like that. Is there anything else that I do? And then, like, you know, acting wise, I do things sporadically. So that's
Keep up with the Afnan Prince.
That's it. Yeah.
Thanks so much. It's been so great.
Thank you for having me.
Love you, man.
Love you too, so much, man. Appreciate you.
Me too.
Yeah.
I see you.
I see you.